Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the review realm once again. We got an album review for you. If you are new to the show, please hit the like button on this, subscribe to the review realm. It always helps us out with these album reviews. Links are in the description. QR code is in the corner of the video. Thank you. We're back after a couple of weeks off of some much needed time off before the summer really kicks off. And now we are back. And back with me, as always, is Sam, the SLB.
Hey guys, yeah, we've been off for a couple of weeks, so these album reviews are a little behind. Let me just start by saying this is a band that's been reviewed a handful of times on the channel. It is a personal favorite of mine. One of my, if not my most anticipated album of the year. So let's get right into it.
That's right. We've covered this band a number of times. So this will be a big one for us. Of course, this is their eighth album. I believe this is the first album too in at least 3 years or so. Of course, we are
Mhm.
talking about. We're right back to them, folks. We're talking about Periphery and their new album, A Pale White Dot.
Yeah, I think everyone was a little thrown off when they didn't add six at the because minus the Juggernaut albums, they have one, two, three, four, five, and then they went Pale White Dot. So,
You're right,
um,
Sam. This is the first time that they've not done self-titled since both Juggernaut albums. Yep.
hmm so, um, where do we begin? Excuse me, that was disgusting.
Okay,
Um,
let's begin to begin.
yeah, so let's begin here. So they did have a couple of singles come out, Mr. God and Everyone Dies Alone, which they sound like the two singles that Periphery drops on every album, and I enjoyed that. Mr. God, short and sweet. Everyone Dies Alone, you more poppy, more mainstream sounding single, and I enjoyed both of those.
I think also too, Sam. At least Wikipedia has it marked down as a single. Heaven on High, um,
Y-
was another one as
yes,
well.
that was released the day the album came out. So if you want to count it as a single, we can. But it was the album really,
Go-
this is a weird release. This whole thing was weird. They didn't even drop the vinyl releases till the day of the album. Which who does that?
Yeah, this a little bit strained on this one. I going into singles, I'll probably say everyone dies alone, probably the weakest of the singles in my personal opinion. Heaven on High, it was another one that was but I did like the switch up that it did
hmm
halfway through. Single wise, this leaves one of the three left, Mr. God. Surprisingly on the shorter side, which there were a couple. This is one of the two songs that just fell below the 3 minute mark. Mr. God, I don't know about you, Sam, but there was another song on this album too, which we'll get to in a second. I got Juggernaut vibes with Mr. God.
Yes, I did as well. I thought it was very heavy. It might be one of their heavier tracks they've ever released. I'm saying that right now. Um, and I'm a big Juggernaut fan. For me, Juggernaut is their second best release
You're
behind
talking about as a
Periphery.
whole, not between Alpha and Omega.
Yes, as a whole, they're my second. It's my second favorite album
Mhm.
behind four. We can discuss that another time. But um, did get some heavy Juggernaut vibes, and I thought this is what we were going to get. We were going to get a good album, and it was gonna, it was gonna kind of follow this. Also, another thing to note: there is not a long song on this album. There's not an epic. Nothing north of 10 minutes. Nothing north of 6 minutes. Um, to tell you the truth, John, I'm gonna just get right to it. Um, this is a tough one for me because I remember when Periphery 2 came out and I despised that album because it sounded like they had sold out, they had polished up, it sounded really clean, and I'm like, this isn't Periphery 1. That Metallica Ride the Lightning thing. They sold out so quickly. Long story short, that became my favorite album. The problem with this album that P2 does really well. P2 is tracked really well and it flows really well. I had a lot of problems connecting with this album. There's a lot of things going on. They try a lot of new things. There's some clean singing from Spencer, which he's not like doing his falsetto voice. He's just like singing like a normal tone, which is a little odd. There is a Pale White Dot, the instrumental at the end, which I did feel like it flowed at the ended the album on a nice note. But there's a lot on here. I'm just like, just a lot did not stick.
I was wondering how you felt about this. A couple of other friends of ours too. I kind of agree with that. I will say the album is meh for me. I think there are solid points on this album. I will give it that. Like you said, like a couple of songs I'm not too crazy about. Like Carry On was another one, whereas it didn't
Hmm.
stray too far, but it didn't feel different enough to me.
Yeah.
Another point too on this album is Subhuman, which featured Will Ramos, apparently from Lorna Shore, who I don't listen to, Sam,
Hmm.
but I felt like the addition of him on there, it sounded more like of where the guest vocal was coming from rather than Periphery.
Yeah. I did like the track. It definitely felt a little off. There's a lot of experimentation here, and I'm a prog fan, and I like experimentation, things to be them trying different things. The thing that got me, and I don't know if you feel like this, and we're going to be talking about an album in the next month that we've reviewed 10 years ago, where anytime a band goes, this one's very personal to us. I just have a bad feeling. And it's not against, okay, this is something you're doing. This is very personal. That's great. But for me, anytime a band has released something like that, I've disliked it. Love the band, hate the band. I've disliked it. Um, the album didn't flow. I think Unlockin' was one of those slower ones I didn't care for. Um,
Unlocking surprisingly was one of my favorite songs on the album. I thought the intro of that was interesting. It was very catchy to me. I don't know if it just maybe it strayed from what they usually do. Um, Another personal favorite of mine too was Talk. I really liked the riff on that one. It slowed down a little bit at a point, and it had a strong chorus, I think, and I think that's the one where Spencer's vocals probably stood out the most to me, as they usually do, with his style. Um, those are my two personal favorites on the album.
um, I think the single stuck out. I did like Obsession. I did like how that started. The first four songs on the album are pretty solid. It just after that, the album again, it just didn't flow. I didn't feel like every other Periphery album for me has been super like it very flowing. Um, I don't think it's horrible. I don't think
Yeah.
it's atrocious, but there's something about it that just is not clicking. And I own every single album. I've seen them so many times. I was, just shocked. I was expecting me to like, oh, maybe it's not, you know, I would argue it might be their weakest work.
Wow. Okay.
But it's still worth listening to. And who knows, in 10 years we could come back and go, "Hey, actually, this turns out to be their best album." So, this is a band I will definitely listen to a few times with this album to make sure that I'm locked in on this.
It follows the pattern too that we seem to be going throughout this year, where it starts to fizzle out towards the end. I really felt like it started to around Carry On, and
Mhm.
Neon Valley kind of continued that, where I just felt like, yeah, it was starting the album was starting to fizzle a little bit, where it started off pretty strong with something like Obsession, where it's just like a minute of ambience and then it gets heavy. I mean, the album sounds like them, but I get where you're coming from. Um, Production wise, it sounded fine. I think
Mhm.
this was their own Three Dot Recordings. I think that's their own
Yep,
label,
that
if
is.
I'm right. Um, one song I'm going to ask you about, because I thought of you as I was listening to it, because Blackwall, because it had a synth vibe to it, and I said, I know you like synthwave, and I said, I wonder how Sam feels about this one.
I actually enjoy when they do synth stuff. Again, Blackwall wasn't one that really stuck out. Again, this is something I'm gonna have to go back and listen to several times. Um, because there wasn't too much that initially did. And again, you and I have had 2 weeks to listen to this album. So Every other Periphery album I've been able to listen to in the first run, and I'm hooked. Reptile, 17-minute opener, banger. The last album had Wildfire. I could listen to that all day. And then it had Draco Grass, and it has all these other, tracks on it. Juggernaut, I love that album immediately when it came out. P3 I liked, and it kind of fizzled out because it also doesn't track well. This one I was just like, I need to. This is a very personal album, and maybe I really need to just sit here and spend time with it.
Yeah, it seems like what you're saying, it's lining up with what a couple of friends of ours are saying too, where you don't really know the initial reaction to it, and you need some more time with it. So that's that. I mean, I don't know if they were going for that, if that's the overall general consensus of it, but when we consider top 10 albums of the year, maybe you'll feel differently by then.
We got plenty of time to figure that one out.
That we do. We have plenty of time left for 2026, almost halfway through the year. Yeah, that's pretty much our thoughts on the eighth album from Periphery, Pale White Dot. Let us know in the comments why we are wrong. What are we missing here? Please let us know. Thanks for joining us. And as always, do not forget to join the Bedlam.